Welcome, everybody, to the Brian Piergrossi podcast. That's me, Brian Piergrossi. It's a joy, it's an honor, it's a pleasure to be with you on a Friday afternoon. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia today. Hot Atlanta, as it's sometimes called. I'm in a dark room with a little light over there, and it's shining. And we're going to get into some fun, illuminating, revelatory, insightful things today. My guest is Sydney Campos, who will be joining us, and we'll be exploring her journey from addiction to freedom. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being with you. You can share your comments, questions, anytime you'd like. This is an open space to share what's alive for you and what's happening for you. And anything that's you're curious about, you're interested in, feel free to share it. So we had a really awesome breathwork here in Atlanta Wednesday night. Super powerful. We had over 20 people gathered. John Stringer did some live music for us. So we had live music with breathwork, which was really just a powerful way to connect and share. And Annie facilitated it with me and had a really powerful closing circle afterwards. I just want to say again the power of this modality that I've just been seeing over and over. The more we share it around the world, and the more people get exposed to it, and the way it brings healing and transformation and opening on every level, whether it's emotional, psychological, spiritual, or physical. Super powerful. And so I'm really just really happy that we were able to share that here, and then we'll be sharing it again in Asheville on Tuesday, so for this weekend. And just had a really great satsang last night here as well with a small group of people that felt really powerful. Giving Sydney the invites. There she is. We're going to bring her on in just a moment. But yeah, we had a really beautiful time in Atlanta, and I'm going to bring Sydney on. She's in Los Angeles, I believe, today. Let's see if we can add her in here. Adding.
Hi.
There you are.
There
Hi,
we
Sydney.
are. Hi, good to see you, love.
Good to see you too. How are you?
I feel so good. I just did a little other live stream share with one of my soul family sisters, and it was just so activating and healing and illuminating. So I feel so expanded and I feel so joyful right now.
I caught a little bit of it. It's I think
Yeah.
what really strikes me is you're really vulnerable and authentic in your sharings in your lives and also in your posts. And
Mm.
I guess I want to ask you um,
Mm.
about that.
Mm.
Ask you about that. What does that
I'm
feel
an
like?
up I'm an open book. Well, I think what feels present and alive now is just the awareness of well, there was most of my life, I guess, in this lifetime, I really was comfortable hiding and pretending to be what I thought you maybe wanted me to be, so that you would approve of me, so that I would feel valuable, and so that I would feel like I exist, so that I would feel worthy of love. Spent a lot longer in my life kind of living that way. And then the last couple of years, I would say, starting with sobriety, which is coming up on 8 years, sobriety from alcohol. And sobriety from abusing hard drugs, I would say too. So it's like sobriety for me. And that journey over the last 8 years has been one of taking down the masks and really seeking, not even seeking, just remembering who
Yeah.
I am, and desiring more truth, desiring more openness to love, desiring more just ease and freedom. So really, I've been really willing to go into these spaces that a lot of people I would, might transparent and authentic and like, whoa, you're saying that, you're comfortable with saying that. That's part of my journey has I've had to be willing to really go into these spaces, especially where it might feel like I'm in danger of like being revealed, or like, I'm in danger of like having that shame activated, a shame or a fear of like, you're going to see who I really am. And so I've conditioned myself, I guess I've reconditioned myself to feel comfortable going into some of these spaces. In fact, I become excited about it sometimes. Like if I feel a trigger and a charge, I'm like, ooh, let's go into that. Like what wants to be freed? What wants to be revealed? And that's my path. That's what I'm in devotion to, because that's how I get free.
Yeah, that's so, and it's like when I guess when people are really into drug addiction, so often it's about trying to run from the feelings that are uncomfortable, right? Trying to suppress or numb the feelings that are uncomfortable, and then the way I titled this is addiction to freedom, and it's like So how did that shift happen for you? How did you go from where you were to what was the turning point for you? Take as much time as you need.
That's a really funny question. Sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know what to say because it's such a big. Let me get simple here, get a little clear. It's not simple maybe, but it can be really clear. There's a moment I can track back. There are a couple big moments, but one of them is important to share. And I can paint the picture pretty clearly. I was sitting in so much stress and so much pressure and so much paranoia, and really just this obsessive fear that I was not living my purpose. I was not living my path. I was really distraught. I was really actually very depressed. And I was blacking out every night and doing a lot of cocaine and, choosing to really put myself in very dangerous environments and situations, risking my life quite often. Meanwhile, living this double life of like working in, a job in New York, like an advertising job. And so I was in therapy, hoping that this therapist would just help me figure out the right career, so that if I could just have the job that felt like, I was living more of my purpose, and, if I could just feel more fulfilled by this job, which also needed to provide to me, money and security, and just really externalizing everything in this job. If the job could just be the thing that then helps me feel like I have meaning in my life, then I'll be okay. That's why I went into therapy, I think. To the best of my recollection, that's what I recall. And then at a certain point, into a few of our therapy sessions, something inside of me, and I feel this was a moment of grace, because it really wasn't my ego, which I think it kind of maybe came out of left-hand field too, or left field, whatever. When in a conversation with the therapist, I was like, I need to tell you that I'm actually, oh, this is why, because I think she was about to diagnose me with like bipolar, some kind of like really intense mental illness diagnosis that required medication, right? And then it was like kind of like shit got real. So then I was like, well, wait a minute, maybe I should tell her the truth, that I'm blacking out drinking every night, and I'm abusing cocaine, and I'm also living this secret life working in a strip club and going to, some random man's house on Wall Street to like be his photo assistant, where I'm getting drunk and, basically coercing other women from like Craigslist to do these like nude photo shoots, and exploring this whole other world, and really hiding it and telling nobody about it, and feeling a great deal of shame about it, and having it all wrapped up in a distorted, story around money and all sorts of things. And I don't remember exactly, but I blurted a lot of this stuff out. And it was the first time I had ever told anybody else what I was doing. And I just remember the look on her face after I told her that. And I think I just probably blabbered it all out, just like a lot, and felt really nervous and felt this big discharge of energy that I had been just holding and repressing. So I felt a lot of my own energy come back probably, which felt really overwhelming, not having to hide so much of this. And I just remember the look on her face, and it was like looking in the mirror. And we are all mirrors for each other, but I really remember this so palpably, like looking at her eyes, and she was just looking at me with this like unspeakable, shock. it's just like I think the message I got was like, you know, how are you alive? How are you even alive? Having, and I'm not even telling you the whole story of everything I was doing. It was really scary. I was like at the point where I was living with I was living with roommates at the time, and I was so out of it that I would just, and I wouldn't even be drunk or high at the time where I would do some of these things. Like I would, I was doing escorting at the time, and not telling anybody about it, but I would tell my roommate. I would be like, hey, I'm going to go to Connecticut, and, if I don't come back by, tomorrow at this time, call the police. And I would be like smiling, saying it, just like, I was really delusional and insane and asking for help in the best way that I knew how. That was how I would ask for help, was to be like, call the police if I don't come home. But like not telling her where I was going, not telling her what I was doing. I was trying to like get someone to ask me what the hell was going on and was I okay? Because I couldn't ask for that support until, again, I was in the therapy office. She was about to put me on medication, and I'm like, well, here's what's really going on. And then the look on her face, struck a chord within me. And it was a moment of grace that helped me to realize through telling the truth that, oh, I'm killing myself. I'm going to die if I keep doing this. I'm going to die. And maybe I don't want to die, and it wasn't that I got sober in that moment, but that was a milestone over the next couple of months. There was a big shift where I couldn't really continue doing what I was doing in the same way, knowing what I now knew, which was that, I'm probably going to die if I keep doing this. So then eventually the last little milestone was, if you could imagine, and I'm kind of painting the picture of just the pain of living double lives and the pain of being inauthentic, the pain of living a lie, because that's really all it was like living so many lies and feeling so drained by that and having to maintain all of these stories. And my last night drinking was I could like write a whole book about it because it was so hilarious, like how many synchronicities happened and how many signs were coming in from the universe to be like, what the hell are you doing? Stop. I mean, it was Halloween night, 2011. It was snowing in New York. I mean, nobody wanted to go out. Everyone was like, no, let's just not go out tonight. We'll go out tomorrow night. And I'm like, no, we have to go out tonight. I made this plan. We have to do it my way. We go to the nightclub. I can't believe I'm remembering this right now. I've never told anybody this part before, I don't think, but I just remember it like part of my soul was aware that this was like the last night or something at that time. Because I remember feeling this very like sensitive awareness of like, go to the nightclub I wanted to go to. There was a really girl from my college days who happened to be our waitress, who I hadn't seen in like a couple of years, who just happened to be there. And I remembered her from being at my parties in college where I was always drunk and like really out of it. And just funny little mirror of like this person who had seen me on that trajectory many years prior, now again here in New York. Interesting. And then long story short, I run into all these other people from my past and I'm just super out of it and I'm feeling a lot of shame. I end up, going to meet some guy who I had just met. This was like a typical occurrence at this point. And I was trying to get cocaine. Next thing I remember, I'm waking up in his bed. I don't remember what had happened, if we had slept together or not. It was just a very typical occurrence at this point in my life, was to like kind of open up one eye and be like, where am I? Am I in my house? Where am I? I don't know. Are my clothes on? What am I do? What did I do? What happened? How do I feel? Am I okay? That was just really typical. And then I woke up though because the alarm on my phone went off. And I'm like, super hungover, not sure if I did drugs, not sure if I slept with this person, not really sure, really disheveled. I'm in this like half Halloween costume still. It's like really weird. And my alarm goes off, to remind me that I have a brunch appointment with a family friend and her niece, because they had wanted to meet me to talk about college, because also, again, double life, somehow I was an example of like doing really well in school and like showing up really well and like double majoring and being involved in activism and being involved in leadership and really caring about social justice and being like, involved. And so this family friend who saw me, but maybe more the real me than anybody else saw at that time, thought I could be a good example to this girl going into high school and wanted me to go meet them at one of my favorite restaurants in the Lower East Side, and place where I'd always drink at. And I went to go meet them. But really what happened in that process of waking up in that like other reality and getting this, reminder that I'm going to go meet this other family in another reality, something really clicked for me. It was like, I think that's more the life that I want to live, is that person who is the example. I think that's actually maybe my there's something there. There's something that like, that's what I want. That's true. What I'm doing now is not true. And there was something about having the like really physical contrast in that moment that really affected me. You know, it was like seeing just like the black and white of like where I woke up and then where these other people were expecting me to be and how they were expecting me to be and how they were seeing me. Because at that point in my whole life, I was just so externally oriented. I was living as though I was living through other people's, you know, reflection of me. This is like my living in the empath shadow of like, I am who you feel me to be, you know, and being that. And it's just so much energy to keep up with. And big part of my addiction was like trying to turn that off. And I didn't know any of this was happening at the time. I was just doing what I needed to do to survive and kind of try to exist as a baseline human and fit in. And so, you know, and then I went to that brunch and I met with my family friend and her niece, and I didn't drink. And then I didn't drink another day. And then I went to AA like the next day. And that's a whole other story. And then I did that one day at a time for many years. And now, you know, it's a long story, many other initiations, but those two moments really stand out as these core kind of awakening moments. And they involved telling the truth to someone else. It involved telling the truth to someone else, being witnessed, feeling their reaction, feeling someone else processing the intensity of all of that which I was avoiding and escaping from, and just like, whoa, having that visceral shock of like, whoa, this is insane. This is crazy. Someone else is reacting to me like this is so dangerous, and I'm just living like this every day with no care. And then also that palpable physical contrast of like waking up somewhere and then meanwhile needing to be somewhere else, needing to be someone else, and someone I care about really expecting me to show up in this other way that maybe feels to be more true with who I really am and what I'm here to be. Yeah. So those are the two things that come to mind. It's a long journey. It's a continual journey.
Sure.
But, you know, I have that was a big moment 8.5 years ago now.
Yeah. Those are two things that I find, both those things you said, like the most important one is being true, like being honest, being real, being genuine, being self-honest first and foremost. But it certainly helps to have someone to listen to you while you're moving through, you know, that you can share honestly with. And the other thing I find is like with this younger woman, and you were kind of like in this mentor role in that moment. And I find it's like when we feel like, it's funny, like if it's for us, it feels like a lot of times we don't care enough about ourselves, but we'll care more about someone else. You know, whether it's a lover or our daughter or our son or a friend or someone that we're mentoring, or, you know, someone else that I find people will make the change in their life. They feel like, you know, this is important for this other person. You know, it's really interesting how that works.
Yeah, that was a really important part of my journey, especially as I was learning, you know, this has been a journey of self-realization, self-actualization, and how do I come back to the self, if not at first through the eyes of others, so that I can build that discernment of like, wait a minute, my own, what is this, myself, who am I really? And especially with the whole empath, you know, psychic sensitive thing, and not having any resources to deal with that, I went through that initiation of living a whole life of like only existing as far as I could feel that you're acknowledging me, you know? So, but I love that lesson so much because it's empowered me to have like such a clear discernment of, and it still comes up, I'm not like at the end of this journey by any means, but I love like that I lived like, you know, 24 years of my life with this like total externalized, you know, sense of self. And then I've been able to have this really rich foundation created around like, okay, who am I? And who am I with you and as one, and really like this deep understanding of unity, right, in a way that I might not have ever been able to come to without the contrast of the opposite.
And how did your spiritual path open for you with the spiritual teachings? Was that something that you were already following, or I'm imagining maybe it started to open up much more after this point, right?
I had a lot of density, man. I was like, well, you know, as a little kid, I mean, I was a super celestial magic being, you know, I bet. It's hard for me to remember a lot of my childhood, I guess. And sometimes I think about some of these timelines, and it's like, I really feel like I was possessed by like all these entities, and we are possessed when we're drinking. Alcohol's an entity, drugs are entities, you know. I allowed myself, I feel like sometimes, like as I'm telling you this, Like I allowed all these beings to kind of just like go for a ride in my human form for like, you know, probably like 15 years. Like I really allowed that. Like I don't know where I was. Like my soul was like somewhere else. I kind of feel that way because there's things I really don't also remember, but I do have this understanding of being a really, you know, magical, tapped in, empathic, intuitive child. And I speak about this a lot. Like, and part of my upbringing and conditioning as a child was to like, well, part of my essence and who I am and who I'm here to be on the planet now and my destiny is to tell the truth and be authentic to what I know is right and to trust my deep inner knowing and speak up about that, even if nobody understands, even if nobody gets it. Like, regardless of what anybody else is doing, I'm here to tell my truth. And so I was doing that when I was a little kid. But then, you know, my adults and my parents were frequently reflecting to me that that made them uncomfortable, that that wasn't okay, that I needed to be quiet or I needed to be respectful and don't talk back and all these kinds of things. And, you know, which led to some great setup for me to really be repressed and disconnected from myself and to feel really disoriented and my internal knowing. And that's another facet of like codependency and empath disempowerment and, you know, addiction even. And just self-forgetting. And most people have that, especially those of us that are like visionary leaders here to create new paradigms for the whole planet. We got to get really initiated into like not giving a shit about what anyone else thinks. And, you know, so I find that's common. So anyways, we're all innately spiritual beings. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience here on earth. And even in my addiction and my like suffering and my, you know, partying and checking out, I was always drawn to yoga. I was always drawn to like dancing. I mean, I loved partying. I can see so many aspects of myself now, like that are true aspects of me that really were shining through in certain regards, but were maybe a little bit, you know, distorted or disempowered or wrapped up in drugs and alcohol and superficiality and materialism. But I always, you know, I always loved to bring people together. I always think I knew that like even drinking and drugs at times I was using as a spiritual experience, the best way that I knew how to seek God, to seek connection with others, to seek intimacy when I wasn't really capable at the time of like actually enjoying intimacy without substances. You know, I was seeking these things without knowing it. And even at the end of my addiction, I was like obsessively doing Bikram yoga, and I was like going hungover to like Bikram and trying to sweat everything out. And I was drawn to these things that have always felt very familiar to me, but I wasn't able to be fully present. I was present to the best of my ability with what I had, you know, but in hindsight, I could see myself seeking to remember, but until I got clear, until I got sober, that was the first thing I needed to do, was to get, I couldn't feel myself otherwise. And it took about 1.5 years, I would say, to detox, probably even longer, to detox from all the hard drugs I was doing and all the drinking I had done. And to actually come back online, to detox from birth control, which had like totally messed my hormones up and was another aspect of how I felt really disconnected from myself for many years, having been on birth control from age 14 to 25. Because I was 1 year into sobriety, my emotions started coming back online, and I'm like, I still feel crazy. This is the birth control. And I noticed I was so sensitive to that, and I needed to detox from that. And so it was an unfolding of a lot of clearing and purification that needed to arrive, while simultaneously being in AA, being in recovery, being in dedicated practice with community. I heard you talking about Sangha, you know, being in Sangha with like meditation communities and Dharma punks. I couldn't meditate by myself. I was so, when I first got sober, and I was like, I mean, I was insane because I was just so out of it. And I remember being, if you could imagine, I was like, you know, a couple of months sober. I'm working in an office in New York. I'm like pretending everything's fine. You know, my coworkers have no idea. I just started a new job. But then I'm like going outside to talk on the phone with my sponsor to be like, they're going to fire me. They're going to fire me. Having like my residual like cocaine psychosis, paranoia, you know, just like freaking out. Like they're all like someone's in the conference room. They're talking about me. They're going to fire me. Just so much fear. Fear had been running my life for so long. And that was a big purging over many years, you know, to work through that. But I just have a lot of compassion for like the earlier stages of awakening and ascension of like people now at this moment awakening and asking, how can I meditate? How do I start a spiritual practice? How do I remember? How do I connect with myself? I needed so much support to arrive to the place that I am now, where I can like easily drop into meditation. I teach meditation, I hold space, all these things, but I can just remember at the beginning how impossible that all seemed. I couldn't sit alone by myself. My mind was attacking me. It was beating me up. I didn't want to sit down and listen.
Mm.
I couldn't breathe all the way into my body. I couldn't feel my full body. I mean, I carried so much trauma. I couldn't even, it took me, I think, years to condition my body to actually be able to breathe like all the way in. Like I just couldn't. I mean, I was so blocked up energetically from like, you know, this part down. I couldn't even like access. Oh God, I'm just feeling so many memories right now. You know what I mean? That was really rough. Like learning how to breathe again fully. Like even now, like feeling the fullness of what this body holds and breathing all the way. And it's so simple now. It's like, well, you just reset your nervous system to attune to peace and groundedness and presence. And that actually has taken years. It's a long process, and we all have our own process unfolding around how we access more of our own depth and groundedness and peace, our innate state of being, you know, in peace.
Hmm. Did you find that was nature a teacher on your path at all, the natural world?
Yeah, I used to love to like smoke a ton of weed and go out into the forest and take mushrooms and acid and like see stuff and all that. And I just used to love to take ecstasy all the time and roll around on the grass and be like in a massage puddle with all my friends. And I mean, man, and I could just say that with such a lightheartedness because I just really wanted to have fun. I carried such a big pressure. I was just under so much pressure. I put so much pressure on myself. You know, one aspect of
Mm.
my being is like has always known I'm here to be of big service and like create new paradigms of love and connectedness and parties. Like we're at the biggest party on earth. Let's do it, you know, and I've always felt that way. And yet I put so much pressure on myself. I think my soul knowing that I was really killing myself and hurting myself and so judgmental and so mean, and would seek fun and enjoyment and connection in nature and would seek fun and enjoyment and intimacy with people I loved, but I wasn't fully really present to receive it, or I was receiving it at the best way I knew how at the time. But just in hindsight, I can really see myself seeking and kind of remembering and feeling the healing happening in nature in the redwoods in Santa Cruz where I went to college, and always seeking for these like sanctuary experiences, but almost like not being able to allow myself to really enjoy them because I wasn't able to be present. I was always thinking about what's next and what are we doing and how's everybody else doing, and I was so disconnected from myself, you know.
Yeah. And then you make this journey. So you had this whole journey of obviously healing yourself and going into yourself and really being honest with yourself. And then at some point you start to be a guide for other people, right? And then how did that come into being?
It's a great question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
um Even when I was like drunk and stoned, people would always tell me I'm an old soul and that
Mm-hmm.
I give great advice. Because that's who I am. I mean, I'm a way shower and I'm here in service to help others. And even
Mm-hmm.
in my greatest suffering moments, I could always say the right thing to someone who needed support.
Mm-hmm.
And I will give myself credit for being the best friend that I knew I could be at the time, you know, with what I
Yeah.
had. And I've always cared so deeply about others and wanting them to be happy, and kind of through this distorted lens of like, you know, when everybody else is happy, then I can be happy, taking responsibility for everybody's emotions. But underlying this genuine desire to feel like everybody, you know, feels love and that I
Mm-hmm.
feel love and that we're together in love.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been in some way, to the best of my ability, here in service to that loving connection.
Mm-hmm.
Now tangibly, the shift of like me awakening to my own, like that this is actually my path, like, you know, my destiny
Mm-hmm.
here on earth, that started in recovery through sponsoring people, and I've taken many people through the steps, and that's a whole journey, and it was really sweet and beautiful because it's not through the lens of ego or career or like making it into a job. It was like
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to be of real service, and really to be in service in a space of like life or death, and
Mm-hmm.
like spirituality or death, you know, God or nothing. And so really being in that committed devotion for many years, and kind of seeing myself in that process of like, this feels so good. There's nothing better that I could imagine than like watching someone wake up, watching the light come on, watching them see themselves, watching them forgive themselves. You know, I got to have these I mean, it's an honor. It's such an honor, and it's all free. It's all happening. Like millions of people around the world now getting sober and helping each other, and it's just for free. There's no money. They're just because in helping you, I help myself. In helping you and talking to you and sharing with you and sharing my story, I heal, and we all heal. You know, so that's another place where I learned the power of vulnerability and transparency and authenticity. It's like the extent to which I'm willing to be honest, you know, and true is the extent to which I open myself to more freedom and healing, you know, and I got to practice that for years. It was like showing up pretty hardcore, like going to meetings every day. You know, that's why I laugh now if I ever have a scarcity of time or whatever, like, how can I do? It's like, I had a full-time job in New York City. I went to AA meetings every single day for like 5 years and spent like 4 hours every night doing that. And I was sponsoring people. Like, there's no such thing as a scarcity of time. If you're like about living your destiny and it does feel like life or death, like living your best life or being asleep, aka dying, then you create the time. You're willing to go to any lengths. Are you willing to go to any lengths for what you really want? Do you know what you want? You know, and are you willing to go to any lengths for it? Because it's possible. And so I just remember that at this moment. It's important for me to hear. And then a few years into recovery, I'm like, have all the gifts and I have all the dream, like epic job, most epic like family, like community, everything's great. But I'm like, something's missing. Like, I'm not meant to be working in, you know, advertising, PR, even though I got everything I thought I ever wanted. I had like this total like dream job working with the best people. I helped create this beautiful agency that's now like totally thriving. They're doing so well. Best people ever. I had all the boxes, check, check, check. But my soul was like, this isn't what you're here to do. And all the meanwhile, over the years too, I had been investigating more into like spiritual healing and intuitive healing, Reiki, Akashic records. I was having these like really transcendent experiences in meditation and doing Vipassana and I was like, whoa, I'm like, things are happening right now. And going into the office and doing that thing isn't really, I'm not really being myself here. Like, this doesn't really compute. I don't feel like this is working. And then I started to become, it's a kind of a longer story. I had an experience like kind of working on my own as an entrepreneur, as a strategic consultant, as a marketing advisor. That gave me like kind of a taste of the entrepreneur bug. I was like, I'm really good at this. This is amazing. I remember when I got my first check for a strategy project I did with an agency in New York. And I'm like, and I remember being afraid even like, they're not going to pay me. Like, I don't know, like we signed the contract, but that's not real. There's no way this could be real. That was so fun. Like, they're not going to send me the check. And then I remember getting the check in the mail and being like, oh my God, this is real. This is so fun. I can do this. This is awesome. Oh my God, I can choose the people I work with. I can do what I want in my own time. People trust me to guide them in the strategy for their vision. And oh my God, I'm so good at this. This is awesome. And so that planted the seed. And then, you know, so years later, I talk about this a lot in my book and in my various podcast episodes I've done with other people too. It's just a longer story, very synchronistic though, because it had a lot to do, leaving my job had a lot to do with like, you know, I was dealing with scarcity consciousness and I was at a certain level of stability and comfort. My biggest block, and I know this is true for many people, and leaving that company just to think about even starting my own was money. Like, can I do it? Can I make the money? Can I make the money? Blah, blah, blah. And eventually I was just like, fuck it. I just put the trust in the knowing that I need to just put my notice in. And it really helped me at that time. I was working with a life coach who really, I was investing in myself to like really get clear on what I really wanted. And I was seeing the urgency of like, it's not in 1 year from now that I do that and save all the money and then leave. It needs to happen now. Like, I need to go. And I put 2 months notice in at my job. It was terrifying. It was so scary. I was like crying with my boss because I'm like, I love it here so much, but I just can't do this anymore. And then he was like, I knew you were going to leave. I just thought you were going to leave in a few months. Like, everybody already knew. We had like a bet going. Like, what are you doing here? You know, everybody already knows, you know, so funny. And then what happened, and this is how it works. I see it again and again with so many people I support. You know, I got 2 offers to be a startup like advisor and another consulting job, basically got all of my income replaced and got to work half the time. Just was so supported. And I got to be free and I got to have so much fun in New York City in the summertime. I got to go travel. And then my coaching practice just started kind of naturally taking off as I was sharing this story, this experience, and starting to make live videos and just share and say, you know, hey, like, this is what I'm available for now. I just did my yoga teacher training, having all these spiritual experiences. I just finished my health coaching certification, which I had already. It's funny how you already know the timeline before it occurs, you know, like years prior. I'm like, I'll just do this health coaching certification. I don't know, like, just, it sounds fun. without any direct objective of like, I'm going to go be a health coach by this time, you know. Just so
Mm-hmm.
funny. We all like, we just already know what's going to happen. Um, and that's a whole other long story. It's all a long life story, you know, but it's all just such a long story. There's so much, and every time I tell it, I notice different things and different
Sure.
intricacies and different alignments. And really, so I left my agency in June 2016. So it's been just over 3 years. And the last 3 years, since really being all on my own and doing this thing, you know, creating this space, it's felt like 5 million years.
Yeah.
It's felt like the most amplified, accelerated growth, transformation, healing, activation, awakening that I've ever experienced in my life. You know, even beyond my time in recovery, even beyond, like, it's just so, it doesn't compute. Actually, it does not compute. That timeline and the sense of linear time does not really compute when I feel into all that has occurred.
How does time work for you, right? So I'm interested in that. Like, you know, how, as we awaken, we have this whole sense of like, oh, there's linear time, Monday, Tuesday. But then as we awaken, that thing becomes, to us to awaken, it becomes illusionary. And then it's almost becomes something, I think it's kind of unique to each person what it becomes, right? So what is time like for you? How do you feel it? How do you see it? How do you work with it? How do you navigate it?
I like this question.
How
Let
do
me
you
feel
construct
that.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. How do we make it up, right?
Yeah.
What is time to me? Well, right now what I feel is time is an agreement that we make up so that we can meet. That's what I feel. I just get the sense of like meetings, like it's important for us to meet. And so we just need time as this agreement so that we know where and when to show up. That's what I hear.
It's
That's
like
what I feel.
so simple yet so profound, right? It's like two things at the same time.
Yeah, it's just an
Yeah.
agreement. It's just an agreement field that we created, that we're creating, that we're deciding to agree upon to navigate this material plane. Because when we're actually in pure energy and when we're embodied as, you know, pure energy that we are in our innate beingness, time doesn't exist. It's just something we create with our conscious. I feel it as like a measurement of space, a measurement of location, to know where to meet each other so that we can create and share.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I know you have a project that you're passionate about called Odyssey, and I'd love to hear more about it. I'd love to hear tell us more about that.
About time?
About Odyssey.
You cut out a little bit.
The
What
Odyssey,
did
the
you say?
project you're about. I was saying I'd love to hear more about your
Odyssey.
project, Odyssey.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. I'm like, oh, Odyssey. Odyssey is really the greatest party on earth. That's what I'm feeling at this moment. It's the soul family reunion, the mastermind, the festival, the healing sanctuary, the dance party, the biggest breathwork, sound healing, cacao ceremony, meditation, sangha, retreat, the best one I could ever imagine with all my heart and soul, with the best people that I love so deeply from all around the world, you know, gathering together for 4 days to celebrate life. And, you know, it's the thing I've always wanted, that I've dreamed of for so long. And so it doesn't exist anywhere else. So we created it. And it's really, it's been informed by a long experience, not only in planning events and orchestrating gatherings and convergences, but really being involved with a lot of conscious events and entrepreneur communities. And, you know, and there's just so many of us right now feeling this calling to create, you know, these new types of gatherings where we can explore gathering in presence and embodied leadership and equality and co-creatorship, you know, really having conversations of authenticity, vulnerability, transparency, where we're taking off all masks and being our true selves together. And in this presence of being our true selves together, being in this coherence, you know, allowing for really fresh new direction and innovation and inspiration, and just this knowing that all resources we could ever require at any time are always available. You know, I see it as this Odyssey is an incubator and a playground of like really exploring how are we here to play and co-create together in the more beautiful, sustainable, abundant world that works for all.
Beautiful. Yeah, it feels to me like it's the most important thing right now, right? It's for us to come together in this field of presence together. We're on this path, and something just exponentially more powerful comes together when we how did you say it? When we set a time in the time time space linear realm and show up together at the same time.
We set a time to meet.
It's like we're called
exactly.
to play and create together.
Yes, and there's something about being in physical presence, and you know, all the, it's like even the old paradigm of marketing, like this event is going to be this and you're going to get this, and that's why you got to come, because you got to come learn from the teachers that's going to be on the stage, and you're just reorienting that whole thing of like, show up, bring your greatest gifts. Every single person's a leader. Every single person is held as a radical co-creator and contributor. How do you show up when you're, you know, held to being the genius that you are? How do you show up when you're not a consumer, you're not a spectator, you're not in the crowd, you're not a sheep, you know, and you're held as a leader with a genius gift to contribute. And you're really held to that standard, and no one's on a pedestal. We're all lifted up, we're all elevated, we're all sharing together, and we're all committed and devoted to being in truth, to being in authenticity, to being in service to love. And what do we create together? I mean, in a lot of ways, it's an experiment. But I know in my heart and soul that it's so time. And there's many other communities like bubbling up around the world right now who are seeking this new model, who are all about, you know, using words like coherence and cohesion and unity and togetherness and connection and equality, no hierarchy, reevaluating, redefining the way we are in leadership and the way we are in co-creatorship and service. And so, you know, Odyssey is a lot of different things, but really in essence, it's a gathering of soul family committed to coherence and unity through transformation, play, and intimacy. And I just, in my soul, I'm like, oh, it's just the most nourishing, beautiful, joyful, playful, fun experience I could ever imagine having with my favorite people on earth.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you feel inspired to share in this moment?
No, what do I feel inspired to share? You know, speaking to nature, I'm really feeling like such a calling to go totally off grid the next couple of days. And like, I'm going to go camping with my business partner for Odyssey, actually. And we're going to go into nature and just camp and play and get our downloads of, you know, what is our next highest alignment with regards to stewarding this convergence, with regards to like being more in the embodiment of our true selves, and, you know, just our normal light inquiry that we like to meditate on together. And it's just so important in this. I'm feeling a really powerful energy with us the next couple of days, the last couple of days for the full moon. It's a really amplified time of feeling the depths of some things that have maybe been repressed for a long time. There's really this sense of going inward. I feel for all of us, we're being called to go really inward and self-resource maybe in a way we haven't before, and hold space for yourself to feel some of the things that are percolating. And so I feel like it's present to reflect, you know, if anyone listening is feeling like this intensity, feeling a lot of emotional experiences kind of like coming up, and it feels scary, or it feels any kind of way, and it just feels like a lot. Don't, you know, just be patient and know that it's all going to integrate over the next couple of days. Don't take any impulsive action. Be with yourself, be patient, be with community, ask for support, really nourish and nurture yourself. It might be a really good time to just go watch TV for 3 days and like do deep breathing, you know, and like just process, and don't get all worried about what's going to happen and what are you doing, and just be mindful of self-criticism and self-judgment at this time, because I know that could be up for a lot of people. And be really loving, be extra loving to yourself. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, I see my buddy John Stringer on, and he's resonating with what you're sharing. And I do think a lot of us are, you know, this social media and this, it's such a great tool to share information. And also I think, like you're saying, like we need time off the grid. We need time to go deep within ourselves and disconnect and unplug. And it's something that we can easily lose sight of because we're just around this stuff all the time. So that's beautiful that you're doing that, taking that time for yourself and committing to that. And I'm sure that will inspire other people like John and myself to do the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Seb. It's been
you.
so fun to So it's been so fun to share with you. I love the questions that you ask. It's really fun to just share and be in dialogue with you.
Yeah, likewise. And for those who
Yeah.
don't know, I was on Sydney's podcast a few weeks back, so you can catch that as well. Double dose.
Coming up. It's coming up soon. We'll be releasing that probably in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it too, and I appreciate you so much. And I'm just very inspired by what you're sharing in the world, and 100% resonant with the intention behind the Odyssey. And look forward to more.
Oh, well, maybe if you come in November, you can see for yourself, and then you can also come to the next ones that we'll have all next year too. Maybe we have to do it in Ashlantis.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. You can talk to me about that. I'll help you set that up.
Yeah, that would be so fun. Oh, thank you so much, Brian. I hope you have the best weekend ever. Have so much fun.
You too, Sydney. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Bye, love.
All right. It was fun, as always. It was fun. It is fun. It shall be fun. If anyone has any questions or comments on any of that or anything you want to share, this is your moment to let it loose, let it out, express yourself, be yourself, love yourself. I love the way that we share. I'll share a reflection to start. I love this format of just authentic, spontaneous, improvisational, live, unscripted sharing. To me, it's like the future of podcasting, the future of Facebook living, the future of Instagram. It's the future of whatever channels we have, YouTube. There's just a deep yearning for just authentic, vulnerable, real, in the moment, live, unedited, unscripted sharing, right? And I know it seems scary to people. It seems like, what's going to happen? What if I say the wrong thing? What if there's a mistake? What if, right? All of that probably will happen. So what? We're all human beings. We're all, what's inspiring is the reflection of the reminder that we are human and we are divine, and there's divinity in being human, right? And to recognize that. Like, in other words, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be real. It's okay to keep it real. It's okay to be genuine. So that's what I love about what we're doing here, what we're sharing here. And I was just invited to a podcast a couple of days ago, someone else's podcast, and I'm going to send you this script that we go through and the questions, and it's a different style, that people are doing, and doesn't have the same aliveness. So I'm going to actually let her know that when we communicate further. But it doesn't have the same aliveness, vitality, right? So the vitality, the aliveness, the presence, the freshness, the genuineness is what's most important and most essential beyond the words. And I think that's it. I'll be in Asheville Tuesday night leading a breathwork with a silent retreat, October 4th to the 6th, 3 days in Gainesville, Florida. Hit me up for personal sessions. Wherever you are in the world, The Secret Glow is in our online private group. We meet every Wednesday. Links to all this stuff right below. Love you all and appreciate you so much. See you next week.